Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Dotson. I'm the Director of Parks and Community Services, and I want to welcome everybody to our first public meeting for our Parks, Trails, and Open Space Master Plan. I want to thank everybody for taking the time this evening to offer, I'm sure, some great input to our Parks, Trails, and Open Space Master Plan, and we look forward to everything that you have to offer this evening. I do want to be clear that this plan will include the parks, trails, and open space, but does not include facilities such as community center, senior center, and the James Lemos pool. I also just want to make you aware that running parallel with this Parks Master Plan, we are also looking at the lighting and landscaping districts. That will be a public works project, and we'll be looking at the possibility of a citywide assessment, which would be a parks, lighting, and landscaping district. And why this is so unique at this time with these two running parallel with one another is after we complete our Parks Master Plan, this will give us the opportunity, and if it is passed by the community, to have funding available that we would be able to implement a lot of the things that come out of the Parks, Trails, and Open Space Master Plan. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Doug Grove, who's the president of RHA Consulting.
Great, thanks, Mike. Yeah, welcome everybody. We're glad to see you all here. My name is Doug Grove. I'm the president of RHA Landscape Architects. So we're based in Riverside, California, and we're excited to be a part of this project. Some of the desired outcomes we're going to have with this master plan, obviously maximize community engagement to guide the plan. That's part of tonight. We've had some focus groups as well prior to this, so we're looking for a lot of community input, and we'll go over more ways to provide that to us as we move through the meeting tonight. We're providing a detailed level analysis of existing parks, open space, and trails, which our team is working on and almost complete with. We're going to ensure a diversity of offerings and equity of access to everybody. We want to make sure we improve the financial sustainability and ensure adequate maintenance for all of the facilities, trails, and parks. We'll be developing a capital improvement plan based on priority setting with the community. What your priorities are through this whole process is what we're going to be based on that CIP plan. And as Mike mentioned, it will go along with a parks, lighting, and landscape assessment district that will be voted on as well. And then develop a strategic and realistic master plan. That's our goal. So a little bit about RHA. We're the lead consultant on this team. We've been in business for over 40 years, based in Southern California, but doing work all over the state. I've done some master plans up in the area with Pleasant Hill, some park design in Pleasant Hill, as well as other areas in Northern California and all over Southern California. I've been a parks recreation professional designing for over 35 years, my career, and just really excited to be part of this team and leading the community and the staff through an exciting project. I'll turn it over to Nilay Bhatt, who's with Pros Consulting, and he'll take it from here.
Thank you, Doug, and good evening, everybody. Just a couple of housekeeping things very quickly. This is in a Zoom webinar format, so any questions you have at any time, if you look into your Zoom panel, you should be able to see the Q&A button. If you type on that, we have the staff as well as a consulting team behind the scenes ready to answer your questions throughout the process. We'll be going through the presentation. We'll have some live polls along the way that you will all be able to share input on. And at the end of this, we will also have another open-ended Q&A for any unanswered questions. So if you have any comments, etc., feel free to put that in the chat to introduce yourself. If you have any specific questions of the plan or of the team, please go to the Q&A portion, and we'd love to hear from you throughout the process. So having said that, my name is Nilay Bhatt. I am the principal with Pros Consulting in Indianapolis, but this is all we do, coast to coast, border to border. I've done 150 plus of these myself. The company's done over 1,000. And we've done a lot of this with Doug as well and his team. So very happy to be part of this process. I also have my colleague, Jason Elisaldi, as a part of this meeting too. And we'll be looking at this from the standpoint of supporting the public engagement, as well as the eventual vision for this master plan. So I have our colleagues with WRT, and I will have Emily from their team introduce the firm.
Hi, I'm Emily. I am a designer on this project, working closely with one of our principals, John Gibbs. WRT is a planning and landscape firm in the Bay Area. So we have been boots on the ground here, able to be in Benicia. We've been to all parks. And WRT has been doing planning for a very long time. Projects all over the Bay Trail too, which goes through Benicia. And just all around, really, really love this project and really excited to see how it moves forward.
Thank you very much. Anina, I saw your feedback as well in the chat. If you could please type that in the Q&A area so the staff can respond to it and everybody else can see that too. Along with RHA and PROS as well as WRT, a key component of this process is a statistically valid survey. And we have an independent firm called ETC Institute that does this for parks and recreation systems all over the country. And they will be driving this survey once the input from all these public meetings has been captured. So just a little background on some of the agencies we and our team have worked with, as Doug said, all over Northern and Southern California, and not just in the state, but also across the country. We work with the best of the best in terms of nationally accredited or gold medal agencies as well. So between WRT, RHA and Doug and our team, you truly get the best of local, regional, and national expertise to help really listen to you and help create the future vision for Benicia. So before we proceed any further, I am going to open up a quick poll here. And what I'd like to just get a sense is, who do we have in the virtual audience here? So I see about 42 participants right now. I'm going to launch the polling on your screen, and I'd love for you to quickly just type in, choose the responses to the 3 questions that we have here. Okay, once I'm done with these, I will be sharing the results so you can see that as well in real time. Okay, I have about 2/3 of you that have responded already, waiting on a few of the others. We'll give you all about 30 seconds more. Ten seconds. Okay, going once, going twice. Here we go. So we have about 52% of the attendees female, remaining male. One of you chose not to answer. As you can see, there's a pretty wide age segment gap, the majority being 55 to 74, followed by 35 to 54. And then we've got someone 18 to 34 and 75 plus. And then this is great. 30% of you have at least one other person, and then someone has 2 people, someone has 3 or more people. So we've got about close to 40 people right now watching this and sharing your input, which is wonderful. Thank you all very much. So as we go into this, just a quick thought on the proposed process. Doug's going to just walk you through quickly the outline of the scope, as well as a quick timeline for what to expect with this.
Great. Yes, as I had mentioned earlier, where we have an existing conditions analysis going on right now. WRT is the primary focus consultant on that. That started in January and is just wrapping up this week. So that's great data. We're right in the middle of our kind of in the middle of our public outreach and engagement process, going from April through September. And the community meetings we have now are kind of the end of the beginning part of this outreach, and then we will take all that data, and Neely will explain a little bit more about what we're doing at that point. And then we'll be coming back with you in summer, late summer, early fall to kind of present our findings. So there'll be more chances for you to provide your input then. After that, we're going to be what we call priority rankings, where we take all of the input we get from the meetings and from our ballot survey, and putting that into a capital improvement plan. And again, bringing that back for discussion with the community and city staff. February of 2022, we'll be getting into funding strategies, part of which will be the Lighting and Landscape Assessment District. And then in February, May of next year, we'll be doing a draft and final master plan, which again, as the community, will be a chance to take a look at and give input on. So about a process we're about a year away from completing. So stay with us and stay involved.
Thank you, Doug. And really, as a part of this, this is for the city's future. So what we want to be able to show you is really what will the city and the demographic in your community look like. So we use a service called ESRI, Environmental Services Research Institute, that looks at census data, population projections based on that. This is probably the toughest time to do any census projections because we are furthest away from the 2010 census, and we don't have the 2020 census data just yet. But before the plan is over, we will definitely have that. So we will be sure to update some of the data you're about to see. But the overarching trend is pretty consistent. In general, in the last decade or so and projected forward, there's expected to be very minimal population growth year over year. Nationally, the average is about 0.8%. As you can see, this is on the much lower end compared to that. But you are certainly aging to a much higher degree. And I refuse to call them seniors because they don't behave like it. But this is really the active adult population, your 55 to 74, which is currently and continuing to be the largest age segment group you will have. In the next 15 years, 45%, close to half the population is going to be projected to be over the age of 55. And then on the other end of the spectrum, about 34% of the population are young adults and young families under the age of 35. So very much on the older side, the median age, which is the halfway point, will be over 45 years old versus nationally it's 38. But again, keeping the active adult population in mind, everything from ADA access to the kinds of offerings we have, to the way we promote things, all of those will certainly be kept in mind as a part of this process. From a race and ethnicity standpoint, you know this as well, you continue to get more diverse as a community with a growing percentage of Asian population, as well as those that the census classifies as 2 or more races. And the Hispanic Latino population, which is an ethnicity, so it can be a part of any of the races, is counted for and will be about 1 in 5 people in the next 15 years in Benicia. So lastly, from an income characteristic standpoint as well, again, something to be looked at too, you have a much higher per capita income, which is the income by each individual. That's at about 55,000 compared to 37,000 in the state and 33,000 nationally. And then on a median household income, which is basically the total of all individuals over the age of 16 living under the same roof. That's 109,000 compared to 77,000 for the state and 60,000 for the country. What you can see also are census tract data by block groups as well that show the income below the poverty level, and the darkest areas that you see are where you have the largest percentage of the population that fall below the poverty level. The lightest areas are where you have the least percentage of people below the poverty level. So along with income, you can also see where the different income levels or characteristics, if you would, are distributed. Along with demographics trends, we also ran participation data, which called MPI, Market Potential Index, And this looks at the spending for each of these activities in a given year. It's done by an association called the Sports and Fitness Industry Association. They review this every year for every jurisdiction, and based on that, create a national average, which is 100. That's the red line that you see going across. Anything over that number means it's that many percentage points higher or lower than that. So from a sports standpoint, as you can see, and this isn't just people participating in the city, you could be participating in this even outside the city, but it's tracking the participation of the residents of Benicia. So from that standpoint, as you can see, pretty much everything from volleyball all the way to golf is anywhere from 1% to 30% higher than national averages, which is really very, very encouraging. Similarly, from a fitness standpoint, you know this already, you are a very, very active community that values fitness too. And Pilates onwards all the way to yoga, jogging for exercise, walking, swimming, weightlifting, all of those too are 15 to 30% higher than national averages as well. And then lastly, from an outdoor activity standpoint, everything that you do there, clearly there's a reason you call Benicia home and you love to be there. It's just because of how beautiful the outdoors are and the opportunities you have for everything from hiking, canoe, kayaking, boating, etc., whether it's within the city or outside as well. So, you know, you have a mostly limited growing population that is significantly aging, increasingly diverse, and has higher than average income levels just compared to the state and national averages. You have a population that generally loves the sports, is very fit, and loves outdoor activity. So that is really where we are today and where the population is projected to go in the future. So I want to share a few options for public input that you can stay engaged with this throughout the process. Already in this time that we have leading up to it too, we have built a multilingual and mobile friendly ADA accessible website. Please bookmark this if you would. The URL at the bottom of the screen here is lovebeniciaparks.com. And this is where all future meetings, even registering for tomorrow's public meeting, as well as today's, the presentation from today, the recording from this meeting as well, and the poll results, all of that is going to be uploaded in this website after the meetings are done. As the plan develops, you will have multiple opportunities to take an online survey. I know a number of you already have been sharing your feedback through the open-ended comment box on the website too. So we don't want you to think of any of these meetings as the only chance you have to share your feedback. We want to keep hearing from you throughout the process. As Doug said, this is year-long, and we truly want to have your input for the entirety of the process and beyond. So please feel free to continue using the website as a resource to see the plan develop and to keep sharing your input as we go along. You know, in these times, obviously, you know, with the pandemic, we've adapted as well. So just like these virtual meetings, we've already done a number of staff and certain user group meetings as well. After these are done today and tomorrow with the 2 virtual public meetings, we will then be working with ETC to craft a statistically valid survey that they will be mailing throughout the city. And it's going to have a number of questions. It'll be mailed, followed by a phone survey, and you have the option to also respond to the survey via a one-time online link that they will share with you as well. So you're going to have all these options and then a statistically valid survey that has a number of questions tying back to, you know, again, voting on a referendum or for the district, barriers to participation. How would you want to learn about future programs and activities that the city offers? And if you had $100, for example, how would you want the city to allocate that? Stephen, there isn't a survey on the city's website right now. The survey will actually be launched after these public meetings are done, because we want to ensure that any input you give us now is incorporated in the survey questionnaire as well. So for now, if you have any other feedback after today, feel free to use the open-ended comment box on the website to share feedback. The survey will likely be live by the end of next month. And because you all registered today, we have your email addresses. The city will be sending you email notifications too when the survey goes live, so you are able to address and respond to the surveys at that time. So some other things here, we now want to get a sense of usage, of quality, of access as well to the different amenities that the city offers. So I'm going to open up the second poll here for us. It's got a number of questions, so we're going to give it enough time. I have 5 different questions here, and I would like for you to respond to them now. How often do you use any City of Benicia parks, trails, or open space? Do you live within a 10-minute walk to a park or a trail? Which park amenities do you use regularly? You can choose multiple ones from here. How would you rate the overall quality of the park's open space and trails? And then how do you travel to your nearest local park? Please feel free to respond to these. Take your time. Love to hear from all of you as we go forward. I see about 40% of you have responded already. That's great. Okay, I'll give you all about 15 seconds more, everybody. All right, going once, going twice. Here we go. Okay, so as you can see, 90% of you use a park, trail, or open space at least weekly, and the remaining monthly. So clearly we have some very, very active users. That's wonderful. Most of you, 97% of you, live within a 10-minute walk to a park or a trail. Only 1% said they do not. These are probably among the highest numbers I have seen in the country, and it speaks really highly to just how well and how many different parks you have scattered throughout the city. In terms of the park amenities that are regularly used, number one, 87% of you said trails and pathways, both in terms of paved, unpaved, or mountain biking. This was closely followed by shoreline access, which 81% of you chose that as a response. And then it really is very, very almost evenly split. Sports courts is the third highest with 45%. And then picnic areas, playgrounds, dog parks, athletic fields are all pretty even at 35 or 39%. In terms of the quality of the park's open space and trails, the majority of you said good, 55%, and almost equal numbers said fair, 7 of you, 23%, and then excellent, 19%. And then lastly, how do you travel to your nearest local park? This is excellent. 3 out of 4, 74% said that you walk. 6% said you bike. So only 20% of you drive. And I'm really disappointed none of you chose to teleport to your nearest park, but maybe we'll try for that in the next plan as well. So this is great. I see a few comments in the chat box as well. Wyatt talks about the condition of newer parks are excellent, but parks and playgrounds in older neighborhoods could use updating. Wyatt, thank you very much. That's really good feedback. I appreciate that. Okay, so from here, we will move into the existing conditions. And this is where Emily and her team did an amazing job touring your system and have some quick highlights and findings for you all to sort of hear about as well. So Emily.
Yes, thank you, Nilay. Yes, so we took a look at the whole entire park system just to get a baseline understanding of how all of these parks are working together. Kind of like the comment Wyatt you had that the playgrounds in older neighborhoods are not doing as well as the ones in newer neighborhoods. And that's the sort of thing we hope to accomplish by mapping all of these different conditions, just to see how things are functioning in the Benicia Parks system. And as you'll see on this list of parks, we did include all of the official parks, but we also included some areas along the waterfront that aren't necessarily named parks, but we do recognize them as being integral to the character of Benicia. And me and another member of my team were out there we went to every single park over 3 days. And I will say it was a lovely, lovely experience. And I believe the next map is park amenities. This was another thing we were out there. There was a 2018 site assessment that noted all of the amenities that were around the park system, but we felt like we had to verify that, and we even added a few amenities like a walking loop that was not included in the 2008 site assessments. And here we're able to see the distribution, and we're also maybe even able to see what amenities aren't included at all. And the next part of the process is where this is a more granular look at the Benicia parks, where we were able to look at each park individually and assess the condition of it, and then assess how each of those amenities are working together as a park. You'll see that we assessed the parks by access and connectivity, condition, safety, maintenance. Another important thing we wanted to talk about is trails and how that fits into regional trails and the trails within the confines of Benicia as well. And you'll see on the right that we have an example for you for the 9th Street Park that's on the waterfront. Here's where we're getting very specific about things we saw while we were out there. And just some takeaways. We saw a lot of things we really loved in Benicia. I myself have done site assessments very similar to this one in different cities around the Bay Area, and the Benicia Park system is truly wonderful. So recent playground improvements, then again, maybe just in the newer neighborhoods. The bathrooms were cleaned and stocked, and that surprisingly goes a really long way with showing how well the parks are working to the public. There's really nice connectivity. There were people there, anecdotally, there were people there from Vallejo and other neighboring towns too, not just residents of Benicia. Athletic fields are wonderful, and there's just a wealth of cultural resources. And then there were a few things that are not working as well in Benicia, but I will start by saying that a lot of these things that park staff already knows, and they're already hoping to address it. But us being able to take pictures of it and name it directly will hopefully lead to that being included in our plans later on. Just some things like areas of dirt, backyards of neighbors looking onto parks and having noise complaints there. Hopefully we'll work on some turf reduction, working on tree selection. The waterfront parks were obviously well used, but maybe not in great condition, and also assessing if there would be any environmental impacts in the near future. Paving all around the city probably needs an upgrade, but again, that's something that the city knows very well and is looking forward to addressing. And finally, signage and wayfinding. Benicia is beautiful. We should all be able to get through it clearly. And I think working on that would just enhance the experience overall.
Thank you very much. I agree. I think Doug and I and Emily, our teams have seen so many systems. And again, there's no perfect system. And there's always things that can be improved and enhanced for sure. But you really do have, as I look at a whole lot of things around the country, you do have some really beautiful places, and based on the assessment as well, a lot of love and passionate staff that goes into maintaining what you have. So a couple polls here now as well. The next one I want to get your input on is about communication and barriers to participation. So next question here is, what are the 3 most preferred ways to learn about the city of Benicia's parks, open spaces, or trails? And these are multiple choice. And then the following question is, what is the largest barrier that prevents you from using the city's parks, open spaces, or trails more often? Two questions. First is preferred ways to learn about the city's parks, open spaces, or trails. And the second question is the biggest barrier that prevents you from participating more often. Feel free to respond to both of these. First one is multiple choice. So you're welcome to share as many different ways of the top 3 that you would want the city to communicate with you through. If something is not listed, it's an other. You're welcome to sort of, again, put that in the chat box. Ron, if you have any questions, please move them or ask them, if you wouldn't mind, in the Q&A portion on the panel, please. Okay, I see about 70% of you have responded so far. We'll give you all about 30 seconds more. Stephen talks about, I use the internet to find info on city parks in the paper. Bobby mentions like to read the city manager's weekly newsletter on Facebook, which is a timely way to communicate with the residents. This is very helpful. Thank you so much. Okay, Lori talks about the barriers as well here. The bathrooms, the signs, and parking seem to be the biggest barriers. Okay. I'll give you all 10 seconds more, folks. If anybody has still not responded, this is your chance. Your preferred ways to learn about how the city communicates with you, and then barriers to participation. Okay, going once, going twice. Here we go. All right, so number 1 was the city's website. That 65% of you chose that as your preferred response, followed closely by 58% chose the activity guide, And then it's the Benicia Rec app and email, both, which about a third of you chose that as an option. All right. By far, the biggest barrier that prevents you from using is that you are just too busy. 26% of you chose that. Lack of amenities was 10%. Lack of restrooms was 13%. And a number of you chose other, and I saw some of you type it in the chat box as well. And 19% of you also chose lack of wayfinding signage for trails and open spaces. Okay. So from here, we're going to get into the last of the polling questions. This is the longest one. There are multiple ones here. So I'm going to open that up for you. This is about improvements and new development. So first one is, which 3 amenities are you and members of your household most interested in? If there's something that isn't included, and unfortunately Zoom limits us to only 10 choices. So that's why what you see here. So we have the other. If there's anything that's not here, please put that in the chat box. Then I want to hear about the 3 most important improvements that the city can make at existing parks over the next 10 years. And then lastly, want to know about the satisfaction with the overall value you receive from the city's Parks and Community Services Department. So 3 amenities you are most interested in, 3 most important improvements that the city can make over the next 10 years, and then the value you receive as well from the department as a whole. I'll give you all just about a couple more minutes at least, so take your time. Okay. Ron, I see your input in the chat box. Redo a section of Bridgeview Park with a nice garden setting next to the basketball court, or add a garden setting section to the area next to the basketball court at Bridgeview Park. Lori speaks about, please include small dog areas. Stephen talks about, I would like more parks with views. All right. See, about 80% of you have responded so far. This is great. Okay, everybody, give you 30 seconds more. 3 questions, top 3 amenities you're interested in, 3 most important improvements, and the satisfaction with the overall value you receive. I see comments on pickleball courts, fitness equipment, example pull-up bars, need restrooms, need pickleball courts as well. Okay, everybody, going once, going twice. Let's look at the results. So by far, the number 1 amenity that people said they or members of their household are most interested in 80% of you said open space, trails, fitness trails, and pathways. 37% said water access, kayak, paddleboarding, outrigger, canoe, etc. And then a pretty even split between sports courts, which is basketball, pickleball, and tennis, playgrounds, and picnic areas, all of them at about 33%. In terms of the three most important improvements that the city can make, number one, 73% said expand and connect the trail system. I see 37% then said more shade structures and picnic tables. And then fairly even split, I have about 30% that said improve and expand restroom facilities in existing parks. 33% said build new or upgrade existing sports courts, basketball, pickleball, or tennis. And then 27% said add innovative all abilities playgrounds. That's great. And then 90% of you said you are somewhat satisfied. That is 57%, 94%, sorry. And then 37% said very satisfied. So combined 94% said that you are somewhat or very satisfied with the overall value you receive from the Parks and Community Services Department. So this is great. So this gets us close to the end of this meeting. Tomorrow evening at the same time, 6 p.m. To 7 p.m., we'll have pretty much the identical meeting, the same format, slides, etc. If you want to join again, you're most welcome. If you know people that couldn't join today and would love to, please share the information with them. The more people join in, the more reflective this will be of your community. As I said, based on all this input, we will then be having ETC Institute create a statistically valid survey. Also have a Survey Monkey survey through online that will go on lovebeniciaparks.com. And then based on all of this, we will be bringing the findings to you in another public presentation so that the things that you've shared with us through all these forums, we can help prioritize and summarize for you and bring it back so you see it and you're involved in the process as we go forward. So I want to stop here for a moment. I will request our team to turn on their cameras so we can be here and take questions. I see them in this as well. So I'll go through some of the questions here. Nancy talks about, in terms of sports courts and the surveys, we already have tennis and basketball. I believe all the percentages are directed to the need for pickleball. Nancy, one of the things we have seen around the country is that pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports. So I hear you and the input of a number of other people. We will already be also looking at asking specifically about this in the statistically valid survey, and we'll continue getting more information from the community. So thank you for sharing this with us as well. And we'll obviously be keeping this in mind. Terry, you talk about in the polls, public art ranks low, but we know public art adds enormous value to our cultural, aesthetic, and economic vitality. Will this plan address the opportunities of incorporating public art into the master plan? Mike or Doug or Emily, would either of you want to take this question?
I'll take that. I'll just say absolutely. I mean, this master plan will look at art throughout the park system. And I think with even our focus groups that we've had earlier, that was one of the topics that we had discussed. And really in all of our planning that we're doing, we're always looking at, options with public art.
That's great. Thank you, Mike. Okay, I know Theron's typing a response to Nancy for pickleball as well. If there is anything else that you think of later on too, I'd love for you to please go to the website, lovebeniciaparks.com, and share your input. Alan speaks about First Street is trail need to coordinate city traffic with pedestrian safety. Drivers do not respect pedestrians crossing the street. Mike, do you want to speak to that? I think it probably is talking of First Street needs a trail.
Yeah, Vic, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I would just say that, yeah, First Street is actually the designated alignment for the Bay Trail, the Ridge Trail, and the Delta Trail, that shared alignment, which is also known as the Carquinez Strait Scenic Loop Trail. So I appreciate that comment. It's something that I think is being addressed in some small part through some planning right now. And that would be something that I think would be addressed later through next steps on the city's active transportation plan. So this plan will be focused on the parks, trails, and open space, but the related piece of any on-street bike and pedestrian infrastructure would be handled through the active transportation plan.
Great, looks like that's all we had. So I want to thank you all so much. Oh, we have one more question, okay? Wyatt speaks about, and Emily, this is probably for you, has there been a review of playground structure age at various parks around the city? Will structure age factor into the master plan? Again, thank you for the effort.
Sure. Like one of the things we mentioned of things that are working in the city are recent playground improvements, but we did assess whether or not playgrounds were present in parks, and we also noted the condition of them. We don't have the exact age of the playground structure, but it was pretty easy to see when the structure was quite old. One example, though, being the playground in City Park. We were able to take note of the age of that one and how the future of that area may shape up. So we are counting the condition of each individual playground, yes.
Vic, did you have anything to add? Or
Neela,
Mike?
if I could just follow up to that.
Please.
In terms of when we get to a point where, especially City Park's a great example, when we go to replace that playground, which we're going to have to do, which this plan will identify, is that we'll have a separate public outreach for that, for particular parks, especially parks of that size and use. We'll have another, we'll have other public meetings to reach out to the community to be real involved when those are replaced, and we'll look at all factors involved in that.
Thank you. And then I have a question from Jim that talks about, are you all considering additional access to the Bay Area Ridge Trail? Vic, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I would say that absolutely. There'll be limitations based on the existing land uses, but that's something that we will assess, and certainly we'll be looking at opportunities for improved signage and wayfinding, as well as connectivity to the Ridge Trail.
And Vic, we had a question also from Ron, and I think someone else earlier, but in the chat box, speaking about what is the Benicia Rec app?
And actually, I would ask Ann Dunleavy if you'd like to speak to that.
Sure.
Or Mike, if you'd like to.
Sure. The Benicia Rec app was just recently launched. We have been designing it and putting it together over the past year. You can purchase the app for free. It's available to you in the Google Store or on the Apple Store. And it is a great resource, and we are utilizing that to make live updates, answer questions, take pictures. And so it's just another great communication tool. If you have any questions or have any difficulties, feel free to call our main office at 746-4285 during business hours, and our staff would be more than happy to help you.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, seeing no other questions or comments here. Again, I want to thank you all for the time and the input. Please stay engaged via lovebeniciaparks.com or reach out to the staff or us as well. And we'd love to keep hearing from you. So thank you all very much. Oh, I have one last question, I guess, from Lyndon here. Is there a budget or funds allocated for capital investment for upgrades? If so, how much? Mike?
Yeah, if you're referring to currently at this time, the only money that we have available in our budget, we have about $200,000 for park improvements that we use throughout the year. And a lot of that is to maintain our current, play structures if they need to be repaired or possibly replaced, to look at our infrastructure within the parks, the hardscape, and then some landscaping. But again, that's why we're looking at this plan and also the Parks Lighting and Landscaping District to give us a funding source to be sustainable into the future and to provide capital money for those investments, because we're very limited at this time. The only other thing is if there's Measure C funds available, but again, that's based on, you know, council's priority when that Measure C money comes to them to prioritize for different projects. And again, a lot of that currently right now, you'll see that's going towards improvements to the streets. So again, just really the money we have in our budget for capital improvements is the $200,000 for park improvements.
Okay. All right, then. Again, thank you all. Have a great evening. Be well and take care wherever you are. Thanks again.